I put my daughter's real name on the headstone my mother ordered. My daughter Nadia died in March. She was 16. I'm not going to talk about how, because that's not the part I keep replaying. The part I keep replaying is standing in a monument shop parking lot at 9 a.m. with a receipt in my hand that didn't have my kid's name on it. Let me back up. After the funeral, I was basically not functioning. I couldn't eat, couldn't drive, couldn't answer the phone. So my mother stepped in. She's good at that, stepping in. She said, "You just rest. I'll handle the arrangements." That's what a mother does. And honestly, I was grateful. I let her handle the flowers, the programs, all of it, and the headstone. She showed me a photo of the finished stone about 3 weeks later. I was on the couch and she held her phone out and said, "Doesn't it look beautiful? Granite." I picked the good granite. I looked at it and the name carved into it was Eleanor. My daughter's name was Nadia. I said, "Mom, that's the wrong name." She didn't even blink. She said, "No, sweetheart, that's the name she should have had. I want you to understand. 16 years ago, when I was pregnant, my mother wanted me to name the baby Eleanor, after her mother. She pushed, and I said no, and my husband and I named her Nadia. My mother sulked about it for about a year, and then I thought, let it go. She called her Nadia, sent Nadia birthday cards, for 16 years, and the whole time apparently she was waiting. I said, "You put Eleanor on my daughter's grave." She said, "Nadia was a phase name, a trend. Eleanor is dignified. When people walk through that cemetery in 50 years, I want them to see a name with weight to it, not something that sounds like a soap opera." I said, "She was a person, not a phase." She said, "And she's my granddaughter, and I paid for the stone, so I got to choose. You weren't in any state to choose. I did you a favor." I hung up. I called the monument company myself. The man was very kind. He said the stone was set, but a new one could be cut. It would take 6 weeks and cost about $1,100, and that legally he needed authorization from whoever held the plot. The plot was in my mother's name. Of course it was. So I called her back and I said, "I need you to authorize the correction. It says Nadia or I go to the cemetery board." She said, "You will not embarrass this family. Eleanor stays. In time you'll thank me. You're grieving, you're not thinking clearly, and one day you'll be glad there's something lovely there instead of that name your husband talked you into." My husband, by the way, had been dead 2 years. She knew that. She said it anyway. I didn't argue. I said, "Okay." I actually said, "Okay, Mom, you're probably right." And she softened and said she was glad I was finally seeing sense. I called the monument company back and I said I'd like to order a second stone, a flat marker at my own expense, to be placed at the foot of the grave. Flat markers don't need the plot holder's sign off, just a permit from the town, and the town only cares that the deceased is who you say she is. I had her birth certificate, Nadia's birth certificate. 6 weeks later they set it. Small, dark granite at her feet where you can't miss it if you're standing at the head reading Eleanor. It says her name, her real one, the dates, and one line under it. She never answered to anything else. My mother found out when she went to visit and put down her lilies. She called me screaming, "What is that? What did you do? There are 2 names now. People will think we didn't know our own child." I said, "People will read both, and they'll be able to tell which one she was actually called. Because one of them she came home to for 16 years, and one of them you carved after she couldn't say no." She said, "I am your mother. You do not get to humiliate me at my own granddaughter's grave." I said, "Then take Eleanor off. The second the big stone says Nadia, I'll pull the little one myself. Your choice." She was always going to be Nadia either way. She hasn't been back to the cemetery since. I go every Sunday at 4 p.m. and I bring flowers for the foot of the grave.